It is week 1 of the fantasy basketball season, and people are telling you not to make any trades. They're saying, be patient, don't make any moves. You drafted them for a reason. But your favorite part of fantasy, besides drafting, is making trades. So make some trades. But if you do so, you gotta buy low and sell high. In this episode, we're gonna share with you the fantasy basketball buy lows and sell highs for week 1 of the NBA season. We believe every NBA fan that plays fantasy football should also play fantasy basketball. Now, I know people say don't trade this early in the season, but there are some opportunities there. There are some players who might be getting a bad rap right now that maybe you can leverage, take an opportunity to just come up and take advantage of your league mates. Now I know I said it, take advantage. You want to totally rob them, fleece them, trick them, manipulate them so you can come up in fantasy. Now, I get it. Some people might play the ethical game no, well, we want to make sure that every trade we make works for both sides and that he can win and I can win. Heck no. Nah, man. I'm trying to destroy you. Huh? I'm trying to do anything I can do to put my foot on your freaking neck, to crush you and your team. Listen, you my guy. I love playing fantasy with you. And just like after the game in a real NBA game, we can shake hands, do some dap. But when we're inside the lines for fantasy basketball, it's none of that. I'm not trying to help your team come up. So I know some analysts out there and maybe even some players, their philosophy is maybe a little different than mine. And I get that. And I would never knock you for that. I'm just letting you know how I roll. I'm not trying to be let everybody win. Ain't no participation trophies in fantasy basketball. I am literally trying to rip your heart out. With that said, one of the best ways to do that is with a buy low or a sell high. So I'm going to share with you a few players that I think you can target here in week 1 based on some recent news that could lead to you getting an advantage on your league mates. So we've had some big news in the NBA, and there are 2 kinds of fantasy basketball players, right? There's the fantasy basketball player that drafted early before the news, right? And then we have the fantasy basketball player that drafted after the news, right? Let that sink in. Before and after. So the first buy low that I want to talk about is Kawhi Leonard. Now, no. Don't leave. Stay right there. I know I've been on the hilltop saying stay away from Kawhi Leonard. But if people are starting to look at Kawhi Leonard as dumpster juice, like somebody that you can drop or throw out and not stash in your IR to see if he can provide some value later on, maybe you could get him for peanuts. So there's someone who drafted Kawhi before the news came out that Kawhi Leonard would be out indefinitely. That player has a whole different mindset around Kawhi because they spent a 3rd or 4th round pick on him when I told them not to draft him, right? So you know that guy. He's in your league. It's your men's in them, right? Hey, I don't give a shit Sue puppy how close y'all are, how far y'all go back to 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade. You can throw your bottom 2 players over to his squad, bring Kawhi back to your squad, throw him in your IR. Now you have 2 spots that you can use for streaming. If you don't know what streaming is, basically it's taking those bottom 2 or 3 spots on your roster of your worst players and dropping them and picking up players who actually have games so you can get as many games as possible in fantasy. This could be a great play for you. Now, again, I am not looking to draft Kawhi Leonard any year, but would I grab him off the waiver wire if somebody dropped him? Would I throw you Bobby Portis, Would I throw you my Bobby Portis for him? Huh? And my Jonathan Isaac? I'll throw you Jonathan Isaac and Bobby Portis for Kawhi Leonard right now. And that's what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying, hey, trade Amin Thompson for Kawhi Leonard. Don't do that. Look at your bottom two players and see if you can, A, bring Kawhi back to your squad, but also free up a couple of roster spots so you can improve your streaming as you start out the season. The second player is in that same category for buy lows. He's a player that has news breaking around him, and there's somebody that drafted him before the news, and there's somebody that drafted him after the news. The people that traded him after the news, as well as the people who drafted Kawhi, right? We're not talking about them. We're talking about the people who spent a top 5 pick on this guy, maybe even a top 4, top 7 pick. I'm talking about Joel Embiid. If there was ever a buy low for fantasy basketball, this is it. This is it. So for Joel Embiid, I've been low on Joel Embiid. I wasn't saying that I wouldn't take him. I just wasn't trying to take him in the first round. Now with the news that he's going to be resting back-to-backs for eternity, for infinity and beyond, on some Buzz Lightyear crap, I'm out on Joel. But if I could get Joel, if I could trade a few of my middle round guys like Brandon Ingram and Chris Paul for Joel Embiid, if he's healthy and he rests back-to-backs, he might play 60-something games. The value that you'll get from Joel Embiid for 60-something games will far surpass anything you get from those two middle-round guys like a Brandon Ingram or a Chris Paul. With that said, now this is the magic, right? So listen up close. This is super important. Joel Embiid, when healthy, is the top, if not top 2 fantasy basketball players on the planet. Let that sink in. So no, right now there's a lot of negative publicity around him. And somebody drafted before, we've been talking about before and after, somebody drafted him before this news broke, and they are sick to their freaking stomach. You have, and this is it, this is the important nugget. You have to create the narrative. You create the narrative. Don't allow your league mates to just kind of willy-nilly through what they see on ESPN. No. Hey, send your man a text. Be like, yo, bro. Yo, I'm sorry you got that dumpster juice on your roster, man. Yo, I'm sorry that hot dog water with the bratwurst residue is leaking all the way down your top 5. Hey, yo, ho, ho. Right? Hey, send him an article. Man, you see this article, what they said about Joel? Dang, man, man, I would trade you something for him, but I don't think I even want him on my roster. Start throwing all of these little tidbits of information about Joel to that league manager who drafted him again before the news. And then finally get him in a conversation about it, him or her in a conversation about it, and then you send the offer. Listen, I'm going to do you a favor, man. I like Joel, and I'll take him off your hands. I know you drafted him with the 4th pick, but I'm going to send you Zach LaVine and Jordan Poole. I'll give you a 2-for-1 for him right now. But hurry up and take it before I change my mind. And before you know, you got Joel Embiid on your team. And if he is healthy, you just offered 2 middle-tier guys for one of the top players in fantasy basketball. So, again, I am not high on Joel Embiid. I'm not. But I'm saying this is an opportunity to buy low. Excuse me. The last player is Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, people have been super high on him. He's been one of the darlings of the offseason. People are excited about him moving to New York, over to OKC, getting the keys to the car in the front court, being the center, and now he's banged up with a hurt wrist or broken wrist. He's going to be out for a number of weeks. But one thing about a wrist injury, when the guy finishes or he heals up, I should say, he's going to get on the court and he's going to play. They're not going to have to ramp him up. So if you can be patient to send an offer of some of your lower players to get him on your bench and then throw him into your IR, I think it'll pay off for you long term. Now I want to talk about some fantasy basketball sell highs. The first player I want to talk about is Donovan Clingan. If you don't know who he is a rookie center from the Portland Trail Blazers who recently had a crazy game. Like, I think he grabbed like 20 boards. Your man is for real, for real. Now, he has DeAndre Ayton ahead of him. I don't know if they're going to play them together at all, but I do know that there's a lot of buzz around him right now. So if you can move him to another squad to see if you can bring back some value, maybe you can flip it where you can actually send him and something else for an Embiid, him and something else for a Kawhi, and stash Kawhi and then have Embiid rest in those back-to-backs. I would definitely do that because Donovan Clingan, as much as I like him, I'm not sure if there's a path for him to get the kind of minutes required for him to be a high-level fantasy producer. I do think he will have some value, but I think he might be a more valuable trade asset early on in the season. Again, you drafted him for a reason, so if you want to hold, that's fine. But it could be an opportunity coming off his recent big game to see if you can, get an improvement in what you're doing with your roster by moving him along. The next player I want to talk about, people might disagree with, but I think this is a great opportunity to move on from him. A player that I love, like I'm here in the Atlanta area. We are going to go to State Farm Arena to see the game when this man comes to town. Box office might very well be one of the faces of the league when LeBron James retires. I'm talking about Ant-Man, a.k.a. Anthony Edwards. Ant Edwards can be a sell high right now. He, in one of his preseason games, I think he did 30-something points in the first half or something like that. He is ice cold right now. And my apologies, not ice cold, but he has ice cold veins is what I'm trying to say. Your man is cooking with hot grease. And I think that the perception around him is that people want him to be a first-round guy. People believe that he is a first-round guy, when in fact, he has never been a first-round guy. He's never really been a first-round guy. Maybe in the 20s. But this could be an opportunity for you to send an offer for one of those first-round guys that you're interested in, whether it's Wemby, Jokic, Giannis, right down the line. Throw in another piece, like perhaps a Clingan, something like that. And then before you know, you can bring back one of those first-round players to your team. So for me, as much as I like Anthony Edwards, I think the buzz around him is that he's one of the top guys in fantasy, when in fact, he is not. And I think that you can take advantage of this if you package him with the right players. The next player we want to talk about for sell highs is Tyrese Maxey. Now, I know people are going crazy about Tyrese. They think he's going to go off. PG-13 is banged up. Joel Embiid is going to be resting back-to-backs. People probably think that he is going to bring the sun, moon, and the stars. And I think that he will perform, but I don't know if he'll be able to perform on the level that people expect. And this could be an opportunity early on in the season in a week one swap that you could trade him to bring home a player, in my opinion, that would kind of be more valuable to him long term, like Donovan Mitchell. You know what I'm saying? That's somebody I'm definitely interested in. You might be able to trade up and get somebody like, I don't know, Paolo Banchero in a points league. So you might need to throw in an additional piece to make the deal work for the other party, but Tyrese Maxey, his value is at an all-time high because people are so concerned about Joel Embiid. People are so concerned about PG-13. And with him being the young point guard with all of this usage, all of these minutes, there's no reason that people wouldn't be open to discussing a deal involving him that could get you some top-tier talent coming back on the return. Now that you know who to buy low and who to sell high on, check out this episode for the top 100 fantasy basketball players.